As University of Idaho teams dig into the history behind the human jawbone that was found at Bear Lake last week, a Garden City man relives his experience from years ago.
This is a photo of very young Dylan Nigas holding a human bone discovered at Bear Lake 15 years ago. Turns out to be a 150-year-old remains of a 12-year-old Native American boy.
Only on 2, Ariel Harrison spoke with Dylan tonight about his experience back then and his thoughts on this latest relic that was found in the same lake.
Jamie, Heidi, Dylan was just 7 years old when he found that pelvic bone on the beach at Bear Lake. He's 22 now, and 15 years later, just like that pelvic bone, his story about this is also now resurfacing.
People love to learn about their history and about other people's history.
As a 7-year-old boy, Dylan Nagas never knew his discovery would fascinate so many, and more than a decade later.
Now there's people that I didn't know when I was a kid that are kind of like, holy cow, you actually found that?
Over the weekend, state park officials reached out to Dylan, inviting him to share the story behind this photo. It was taken the day Dylan stepped on the bone in shallow water while on the lake with his family.
I was like, that's an interesting looking rock, and I grabbed it and started looking at it. I was like, wow, cool. And I didn't know any better, and so I went to show it to my parents, and they're like, oh, that's not a rock.
Teams later discovered the history behind his find, a 150-year-old pelvic bone from a young Native American boy. Information Dylan is hopeful teams will be able to track down about the latest lake discovery.
I think we feel like we've always been drawn into history, and I think that's definitely a big part of, why this story is just kind of blown up from there.
Dylan said the bones were found in different areas of Bear Lake, and while he's not sure whether they're related, he's hopeful they are.
I think it'd be neat, I would say, if they kind of found a link between the two. These people were here so long ago, and that we're now finally starting to actually discover some of these, some of their remains.
Now, I reached out to the University of Idaho today to ask about a timeline when it comes to those lab tests on that newly found jawbone from last week there at Bear Lake. I did not get an answer to that. In the meantime, state park officials do say it is common to find animal bones at Bear Lake. However, human remains, that is not common. Reporting live, Ariel Harrison, KUTV 2 News.